Met my husband in December of 2015. So 16 and 17 decisions on which country we were going to move to and such. So I did not establish residency here until July, and then began all my paperwork subsequently when we were married in October of 2017.
So I take it from your last answer, Ms. Sexton, that Australia was the lucky winner for which country you and your husband would choose to live in. Is that correct?
Yes, indeed.
And do you currently have a job? Do you currently work right now in Australia?
Yes, I'm an acting coach.
When was it, to the best of your recollection, that she took a class that you were a TA in?
I believe it was sometime in 2009.
For how long did you remain Amber Heard's primary or exclusive acting coach?
I don't know about exclusive. We don't have any sort of exclusivity contracts. She may work with other coaches. The last time we worked on a project together would be Aquaman, so 2017. I don't know about exclusive. We don't have any sort of exclusivity contracts. She may work with other coaches. The last time we worked on a project together would be Aquaman, so 2017.
Okay, so the first movie, or the first TV series, I should say, that you recall working on as an acting coach with Amber Heard was the Playboy Club.
Yes.
Listed there 2011.
Yes.
I take it from what you just described that although the frequency varied, it's fair to say, is it not, that you saw Ms. Heard many, many, many times during the period between 2010 and 2017?
Oh, yes.
Would it be fair to say that you saw Ms. Heard during this 7-year period more than 100 times?
Easily, yes.
And when you say easily, do you think it's also fair to say that you saw her more than 200 times?
Absolutely, yeah.
I'm going to go up another 100. Same answer for 300 times?
Yeah. As I said, when I would see her, it would be multiple times a week in preparation for a project.
When's the last time that you had a session with Amber Heard as her primary acting coach?
Mid-2017.
During that early period when she lived on Orange Avenue, how would you describe, Amber Heard as an actor?
She was really focused on moving to the next level of her career and really stretching herself as an actor, which is why she started coaching so much at that time and initially even went to classes. So she was really driven to do a lot of work and kind of mine out everything that we could from the text and go over things a lot. So she was very driven as an actor to, I would say, get to the next phase of her career.
We're looking at Sexton 1. Refresh your recollection as to when that took place. That's the IMDb page.
Yes, it was either 2011 or 2012. If it's saying that it came out in 2011, then the premiere would have been in 2011, so yeah.
When was the next time you recall seeing Johnny or Mr. Depp?
I would say sometime in the middle of the following year.
So sometime in the middle of 2012, you think?
Yeah.
And where was that?
At her house on Orange. I remember seeing him quite a bit. In the early period...
Again, I'm focused on the early period. Did you have occasion to run into Mr. Depp at your coaching sessions with Amber later when she moved into Sweetser Avenue and then at the penthouse in downtown Los Angeles?
Yes, I did see him often at both Sweetser and the downtown house.
And over that period of time, did you observe changes in Mr. Depp's behavior?
Yeah, Johnny became, I would say, much darker as time went on. He was like figuratively and literally. He would sit in dark rooms. The art overall changed. Like, everything got much darker in the houses with, like, heavy, it was always a little, I don't know what the art form would be, dark, but it just, like, literally lighting would go down and big curtains would be everywhere, and he became much less talkative as time went on. I would see less and less of him personally. I would hear him in the house, but I would see less and less of him interaction-wise. And when I did, he wasn't very happy.
What would you hear him say on those occasions when you could hear him but not see him?
At different points in time, I heard different things. Sometimes it would just be him milling around the house. Sometimes it would be him having conversations with his team, bodyguards and stuff, or his friends that were over making music at the Sweetser location. Sometimes it was him and Amber fighting. Like, I was in his home, so I heard him quite a bit.
You said a couple of answers ago that from time to time you would hear Mr. Depp and Ms. Hurd fighting. Can you, again, keeping in mind that it's a long time ago, can you describe what you heard?
I would say I would just hear a lot of him yelling. His voice would carry through kind of the halls of the house. And then, like, I remember one time in specific that I could hear Amber was trying to get out of the room, and then the door shut again, and then I could just hear muffled yelling on his part.
At the beginning of their relationship, once Ms. Hurd has revealed to you that they were in fact in a relationship, did she talk to you about Mr. Depp's struggles with drugs and alcohol?
In the early parts of their relationship, she had said that he was sober. She was trying to support him in his sobriety. And then subsequently throughout the relationship, we would talk about his breaks in sobriety.
Based on your work as Ms. Hurd's acting coach, primary acting coach, was it your understanding that Mr. Depp had opinions about what role Ms. Hurd should take?
There were a couple of occasions where I actually heard Johnny say, why would you want to do that kind of role? My woman isn't going to play that kind of role. Stuff like that I heard a few times from him over the course of time.
Other than saying that hearing Mr. Depp say he didn't want his woman playing a whore, did you ever hear him use any other language like that about the kind of roles that Ms. Hurd was being offered? To focus you in, Ms. Sexton, I'm talking about the period when Amber and Johnny were together in a relationship until you stopped being her acting coach in 2017. And I'm focusing in on what you recall hearing from Mr. Depp about what roles he thought Ms. Hurd should play. As I said,
he would be sitting. Initially, when she lived in the Orange location, sometimes he would be nearby. It was a fairly small house, and he would be nearby and kind of earshot. So there were times that he was kind of just disparaging. That's a shitty role. Why would you do that? That kind of thing. But he wasn't super negative then. Later on, as it went on, he was very vocal about the negative terms. Like I said, he called it a whore part or a trash part, or a piece of shit, all sorts of things like that. Generally pretty negative if it was something he didn't want her to do.
Did the number of roles that Ms. Hurd auditioned for change during the time that she was involved with Mr. Depp?
Yes, it did. It was decreasing as it went, and there would be stretches of time where she wasn't auditioning at all or working on anything at all.
During the time that Mr. Depp and Ms. Hurd were together, did you observe changes in their relationship over time?
Yeah, early on they were incredibly lovey-dovey and passionate and always together in a positive way. They were very playful and friendly. And then I would see less and less of them together, and I would hear a lot of muffled arguments through the walls. And when I did see him, sometimes the balance would shift. It went from being like a normal couple to very tension-filled, especially those last few months that they were together. And yeah.
Was there a withdrawn? Did the number of times that Ms. Heard was late for or canceled sessions with you change as her relationship with Mr. Depp went on in time?
Yeah, as I said earlier, Amber was never late when we worked at the studio. And then as it went on, I began having to actually build in a cushion of an hour around her appointment. It started out just an extra 15 minutes here and there because she'd be late coming downstairs, or they'd be discussing, or he had to talk to her at that moment in time. And eventually, as the relationship progressed and the fighting got heavier, I would have to build in time because she'd be sobbing at the beginning of sessions, and we couldn't work until we got her together. Yeah, I ended up having to do a lot of cushion time around her just so that we could actually get something accomplished, because she was often very upset.
Did you have occasion to observe Ms. Heard crying, naturally, not acting, when you had coaching sessions with her during the time that she was together romantically with Mr. Depp?
I would say the last year they were together, probably 80-90% of our sessions began with her crying. That would be increasing as it went on. Ironically, she has a little difficulty crying, acting-wise, so which a lot of us do. And so, yeah, we would have to work when we were doing it acting-wise, but it was a lot towards the end there, a lot of crying sessions.
Based on your testimony here, Ms. Sexton, is the crying that she did in a role different than the crying you observed so often in the last year of her relationship with Mr. Depp?
Yes, inherently acting crying is very different, unless somebody is working in what's called method, in which that's an entirely different thing where they focus on their own stuff. So she's not a method actor, so it would be completely different.
Speaking for your own self, Ms. Sexton, how did you react when you saw Amber at these sessions crying the way you described it?
I have a caretaker personality, so I would prioritize taking care of the person in front of me over doing work, which is why I ended up building in all that extra time, because I cared about her as a human, and I wanted to be there for her in as much as I could as a friend. So there's no point on working on something if someone isn't fully there or they're upset. It's more important to deal with the person and take care of them than work.
And during those sessions, particularly in the last year when you saw Ms. Heard crying so often, what was your understanding of the reason for her tears?
I would hear them fighting and then hear her come in, and she would be a wreck after she came in. I couldn't make out what they were saying, and I personally wasn't trying to listen to their fights, so I would just hear the sounds of the screaming. And her usually, you could tell she would open the door and try to get him to be quiet, and then it'd go back to him yelling. And so that would directly occur before she would come down and be upset and trying to pull herself together.
What do you recall seeing her say she told you that they were fighting about?
I was witness to some of those. He didn't want her going out without any sort of security or any team. He didn't want her going and doing things just on her own.
You described earlier in your testimony, Ms. Sexton, what Amber Heard was like when you first met her. During this period when she was involved with Mr. Depp, and particularly toward the end of their relationship, did her behavior change?
Over the course of time, she became more and more of a hermit, only leaving the house when she had to. Again, as I said earlier, literally the houses became darker with the curtains drawn all the time. I remember one time in particular when she was living at the Eastern Columbia that we went downstairs to get a slice of pizza. I think there were 4 of us, and Amber gave a homeless kid down there some money, and we helped him get to the bus stop, and we came back up, and Johnny yelled at her about going out, and that she knew better than to be going out at night and that kind of thing. And when we tried to kind of be like, it's fine, we got pizza downstairs at the building across the street, then he just started screaming and getting really angry, so I made my way out.
What about her weight? Did you notice any changes during that period in her weight? Just to be clear, Ms. Sexton, I'm asking about the time that she was involved with Mr. Depp.
So Amber is one of those people that loses weight when she's stressed out. So she would drop weight and look skeletal at certain points in time. I remember right before their wedding, she had lost a significant amount of weight to the point that I was asking her if she was eating regularly. So she's always been fit, but she would drop down and get a little gaunt if she was super stressed out.
And in that last year that she was involved with Mr. Depp, do you know changes in her weight?
Yeah, she lost a significant amount of weight, and I noticed it specifically because I had been in Australia doing a film, and then when I came back, so I'd been in Australia since December, I came back in February, and she looked, she was skin and bones. Like she was much thinner than she normally was at that point. So I know during that time period that she had lost a lot of weight and she was very gaunt.
Now, I'm going to shortly move on to specific incidents. But for now, Ms. Sexton, I want to speak generally about things you observed and saw. And the first question I have in that regard is, during the time that you were Amber Heard's acting coach and she was involved with Mr. Depp, did you observe injuries on Ms. Heard?
When she came back from Australia, there were a lot of like little red marks on her arms that looked like freshly healing things. Skin, like red marks on her skin, on her arms that I saw. And then subsequently I would see like bruises that looked like arms being grabbed or wrists. And I saw that all towards the end.
Did there come a time when you accompanied Amber Heard and Johnny Depp to Hicksville, California?
Yes, I went to Hicksville for Johnny's birthday celebration with them.
And in your own words, can you tell me about that trip and what happened chronologically?
We arrived at Hicksville and we had made kind of like a barbecue and drinks. As we were having a lovely time, Johnny was playing guitar and singing. And then as the night went on, like around sundown, they started passing around a bag of mushrooms and a bag of white powder. I didn't even partake in the alcohol because I had had surgery a few months before, so I was the only one stone cold sober. Then I went to bed early And while my friend and I were in our trailer and we heard the fighting happening, Johnny screaming and a commotion, we didn't come out of our trailer. And then the quieting down and everyone being like, oh, it's okay. The bodyguards, I heard them running over there. And then the next morning when we got up, the group was talking about what had happened that night. And then I kind of left that conversation and went to the trailer to check on Amber. And I saw the completely torn apart trailer. Johnny was apologizing for what he had done, and he was instructing his bodyguards to just pay it off. Let's just take care of it. And I stayed with Amber. And she was really shaken up.
The next day, can you describe for me what the trailer where Amber and Johnny were staying looked like?
The inside was in shambles. I remember seeing a light hanging off the wall. There was broken stuff everywhere. Dishes, it looked like, or not dishes, like the wood was broken. Things were hanging off the wall. It was in shambles on the inside.
And that next day, I think you said that you had occasion to see Mr. Depp. Is that correct?
Yeah.
How did he look that next day when you saw the trailer?
He looked very worried. He was apologizing. He was saying he would take care of it. He was like, don't worry about it, babe. We're going to get this taken care of. And Amber was really like closed off and quiet, and he just kept kind of apologizing to her over and over again, and then telling his bodyguards to just take care of it, just get it done, whatever it is, just pay for it. And then he went off to go have that conversation with them.
What was Mr. Depp saying that next day when he was apologizing?
I just remember him saying, I'm so sorry, babe, I'll take care of it. I know this is bad, but I can take care of it. I'm sorry I did this, that kind of thing.
I think you said, testified in survey, but I want to make sure the record is clear. Did you recall Mr. Depp using the word monster that day?
I heard him on different times making apologies that he said, I'm sorry I turned into a monster. I just remember a profuse amount of apologies. I don't know if that time in particular had that verbiage.
Anything else about Hicksville that you remember that you haven't told me about?
I mean, the only thing I stated that I did see him eat the mushrooms. I saw him holding the white bag. I don't know what he did with that, the bag of white powder. Everyone except for me was drinking, and different people were partaking in different drugs at that time. So I didn't keep track of that. Yeah, I don't know anything else that I can recall.
Okay. I want to go forward to another incident, and that is the day of April 21, 2016, which I'll represent to you, was Amber Heard's 70th birthday. Did you have occasion to see Amber Heard that day?
Yes, I attended the party.
And again, you say you attended the party. Can you describe the party you attended, who was there?
The party was happening in one of the penthouses, the one that they didn't live in. It's where they did most of their art, and we did most of our coaching. And I don't remember the number of that one. And there were several friends of Amber's there, and we spent the first couple hours waiting for Johnny. And then eventually Amber said, just let's not stop waiting for him, let's just start. So we went out to the balcony to start dinner, and that's when Johnny finally came down, and he was severely inebriated when he came down. And they, Brandon, I don't remember his last name, it starts with an M, escorted him, kind of helped him stay stable. And we went to the table and we started dinner. And Johnny and I was sitting 2 seats away from Johnny. Johnny and Amber clearly were very tense and had been, I don't know what they had been doing, but they were very tense. And he would try to kind of touch her and she would shy away. And then Rocky was trying to change the tone of the party because it had really gotten very somber at that point. And she asked everyone to kind of say their favorite story about Amber. And as we went around the table, everyone shared their stories. And when we got to Johnny, he started talking about that he remembered when he first met her, the imprint of Amber's ass on his couch were his words. And it just all kind of took a turn from there. She was clearly embarrassed. She asked him to stop, and he kept telling the story. And it got really awkward and uncomfortable at that point, and never really recovered any sort of jovial energy. We ate, and then I left shortly thereafter.
I forgot to ask you this question about Hicksville. The day after, when you saw Mr. Depp and Ms. Heard in the wrecked trailer, did Ms. Heard seem embarrassed?
Yeah, as I said, Amber was very closed off. She was very quiet. She had said, "Don't come in. I don't want you to see this." So, yeah, she seemed very embarrassed. Now,
switching forward to Amber's 30th birthday party, I think you testified that Mr. Depp seemed inebriated when he arrived. What's your basis for saying that?
He was slurring his words and wobbly on his feet. He ran into a couple things, which is when Brandon came over and kind of locked arms with him to kind of help him stand up.
You said you saw her later with a healing bruise. Where do you recall seeing that healing bruise?
On her cheek. It was on her right cheek. I think it was right, yeah.
Do you know how long after the incident that you just discussed with the cell phone you saw Ms. Heard in her face?
It was a few days later, but I couldn't tell you exactly when. I mean, everyone heals at a different rate. I could still see kind of the yellow and stuff in there, so.
When was the last time you spoke to Amber? You said August of this year?
Mm-hmm.
When was the last time you spoke to her specifically? Do you remember?
We went over it was sometime in August. I can narrow it down to August, to have wine, have a glass of wine and catch up, because like I said, I think it had been 2 years since we'd physically seen each other.
Both times when you met with Ms. Heard in August of this year, did you meet with her at her house?
Yes.
Did Ms. Heard mention any of the allegations that Mr. Depp is making against her in relation to this case when you met with her?
Only to talk to the attorneys about it.
When you say only to talk to the attorneys about it, what specifically did Ms. Heard tell you?
Like she said, would you be willing to sit down and talk to my attorneys about everything that you witnessed? And then afterwards, after I kind of talked about it all, it felt really intense to me and I felt incredibly guilty.
Was it during one of these 2 times that you met with Ms. Heard in August of this year that Ms. Heard told you for the first time that Mr. Depp had allegedly raped her with a bottle in Australia?
Yeah, she did talk about the bottle then, yeah.
Was it the first meeting that you had with Ms. Heard in August of this year that she mentioned that?
No, it was after, like, I had come to see her and had a wine night and catch up, and then after I had talked to the attorneys, after we had a good cry, we were talking more about what had happened, and she was saying how she didn't even tell me everything, and yeah, that's when it came out.
And just to confirm, Ms. Sexton, Ms. Heard told you about the bottle incident in Australia where she claims Mr. Depp penetrated her with it. before your deposition, your first deposition in the case in August of 2019?
Yes. It was after I had talked to the attorneys.
After you had spoken to the attorneys informally, correct, at her house?
Yeah.
But it was before you were formally deposed in this case on, I believe it was August 30th, 2019.
Yes.
And just to confirm and make the record really clear, this was the first time Ms. Heard had told you that Mr. Depp had allegedly penetrated her with a bottle in Australia, correct?
Yeah, she had told me about the assault with the bottle, being hit with the bottle and the broken glass and everything. And then she had told me about all that many times before. And then this time she started crying and sobbing and started telling me about the assault, the penetrative assault.
And when Ms. Heard told you about this alleged rape that occurred, did she know that you were going to be deposed by her attorney?
No, because they were all in the other room. And they didn't even tell me that they were like, we may have you for a deposition. And that's when I had said to them, if you're going to do that, I would appreciate it if you did it before I left the States. And they said, we may or may not need you. And it was a couple days later that they then sent me the contact and said, we are going to subpoena you.
And since you've known Ms. Heard, can you tell me how many times you spent maybe a significant amount of time with Mr. Depp?
I would say probably around like 10 or 20 times.
And of those 10 or 20 times that you saw Mr. Depp and spent maybe more significant time than him just passing through a room, how many times would you say he was or appeared to be sober?
Not many. He would, if he was coming down to have a conversation, he was pouring a glass of whiskey or rolling a joint or having wine. It always seemed to me that he's not a social animal, if you will, and he would have a drink or a smoke in order to go talk to people, is what it felt like. So most of the time I saw him, it was that.
You would agree with me, though, Ms. Sexton, that someone getting a drink is different than someone appearing drunk, correct? For example, if it was his first drink of the day. So my question is a little bit more specific. Of the 10 or 20 times that you saw Mr. Depp, how many times did he appear inebriated? Not, holding a glass of whiskey or smoking a joint, but how many times did he appear inebriated to you?
I would say at least half, if not more.
How would you describe Mr. Depp's personality when he was or appeared sober versus when he appeared inebriated?
He was very quiet when he was sober, and before he would start drinking, he was very quiet. Almost a whisper, mumble most of the time. And then he would get very loud when he was inebriated, and he would go to like boisterous first and telling like cool stories and stuff, that kind of happy drunk, and then it would move into the loud, angry drunk.
When you say loud and angry drunk, did you witness Mr. Depp be angry when he was drunk?
A couple of times, yeah.
When was the first time you witnessed Mr. Depp appear to be angry and inebriated?
I couldn't tell you the first time per se. I have images in my head. I remember him like yelling and screaming, and the bodyguard coming over and being like, "Hey, boss, let's take this to another room."
Can you tell me as much as you can remember of that incident?
I remember being in the kitchen of that house, and he came down and he was yelling about something. Amber and I were having a conversation, and we were going to, I think we were going to work on something that day. It was later in the evening where it was really dark in there. Like I said, sometimes they drew all the curtains. In my memory, it's very dark. And he was yelling, and that older guy came and like scooped his arm around him and was like, all right, boss, let's take this to another place. Because he was inebriated. I could tell from the way he was talking, and he was just kind of yelling. And I don't recall what was happening. It all kind of happened very quickly. I don't recall what he was yelling about, or if it was even at anybody. He was just kind of down there and drunk, and we scooped him up.
You anticipated my questions, which were who was he yelling at and what was he yelling about. So you don't recall, is that correct?
No, I don't.
And you said the other instance that you remember of Mr. Depp appearing inebriated and being angry was at one of his penthouses in downtown LA. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
What were the circumstances that you remember about that incident?
I remember one time he was mad that people were in the house because I had just gotten there. I don't even remember. There might have been like 2 people there or something. I don't remember. But yeah, he was storming up those stairs to his office bedroom area. And then Amber and I went to the other penthouse to work.
And in either incident, both at Sweetser and at the penthouse, when you saw Mr. Depp and he appeared inebriated and was angry and yelling, did you see him hit Ms. Heard at any point?
No, I did not see him hit her.
Did you see him kick Ms. Heard?
I did not see him kick her.
Did you see him throw something at Ms. Heard?
I saw him coming at her, and that's when the bodyguard stepped in, like coming towards her. But I did not, like, so throwing himself at, like, but I was not witness to him throwing objects at her.
When you say he was coming at her, are you describing the incident at Sweetser or at the penthouse?
Sweetser, he came in through that hallway, and we were sitting at, it was kind of like an island there, like, right in front of the fridge, and I was in front of the fridge, and he came in from there and was, like, coming at her, and then the bodyguard, like, came in and scooped him up.
This is the incident. You don't remember what Mr. Depp was yelling about or
Yeah.
what?
Yes.
But it appeared to you that Mr. Depp was coming at Ms. Heard.
Yeah.
Correct?
She was shaking and upset. It felt like something that had been going on for a while.
And all the time that you've known Ms. Heard and Mr. Depp, did you ever see Mr. Depp be violent towards Ms. Heard?
I never saw him hit her. I heard him use terminology, as I said before, and as I said, come at her, but I never saw him hit her. If I had, I would have called the cops, to be honest.
You never saw Mr. Depp throw anything at her, any objects at her, correct?
No, the only thing I saw was the aftermath. Like, I would see things broken afterwards. And like I said, in Hicksville, I heard the yelling and then saw the breaking and saw him apologizing for it. But I, with my own 2 eyes, did not see him physically break the stuff or throw the stuff.
When Mr. Depp and Ms. Heard went to Australia, did she tell you that she threw a bottle of vodka at him and that's what severed his finger?
No, she had told me that he had broken the bottle and cut himself with the bottle that he had broken.
When she told you that he had cut himself with the bottle he had broken, did she say that he had taken the bottle and cut off his finger, or that it was an accident and that his finger was severed from the broken bottle? Do you understand the distinction?
Yeah, she didn't say that he... She didn't indicate that he cut off, like, went purposely to cut it. What it seemed to me is that he had broken the bottle against something, and then he was doing things with the bottle, like shaking it around, and that he had cut himself from that. It didn't indicate that he had in any way purposely cut himself.
Do you recall Johnny ever saying something to you in a conversation with him later about his ability to pass insurance tests?
I remember a specific time when Amber still lived at Orange, and Amber was out with her girlfriends, and I had come over too early for the party, so it was just Johnny and I sitting there having some whiskey, and he was smoking cigars, and he was talking about that it was, I said something about, he said he had to get up early to do a test, and I was like, oh, don't you have any sort of, like, concern about that? And he's like, it's easy to fake insurance tests. That's why we do what we do. I was talking to him because another client of mine had to do an insurance test, and he was like, oh, you can fake a piss test, you can do this. And he just kind of went over a few different ways that it's easy to fake insurance tests and made a joke of it.